Hello, and welcome to another World of UX podcast. I'm your host, Darren Hood. Thanks for taking the time to join us on today. A special welcome to those of you joining us for the first time. Let's focus on a topic that it's near and dear to my heart because it's something that I love. It's something that I talk to people about a lot, whether it's my students, whether it's people I'm mentoring, whether it's just standard conversation, whether it's people at work. The topic of personas comes up a lot, and that's what we're going to talk about today. I want to share the truth about personas. Personas are, in many instances, they're a hated element today. A lot of people, I've talked to a lot of people who say we shouldn't be using personas. They don't like personas. They say that, I've actually heard somebody say that only unskilled people use personas. And I like listening to what a lot of people have to say about different topics. And I know what I've encountered in my travels. I know what I've encountered when I do the work. And it's just time to talk about this. And in one of the recent Kaizen UX Rendezvous sessions, the global meetup that we have the last Friday of each month at 12:15 Eastern time, if you're interested, reach out to me, go to the Kaizen UX page on LinkedIn. You will find a link to that event. By the way, the one that's coming up this Friday is an extended session because of the holiday in the United States. So if you'd like to come out and talk to UXers from around the world about any and everything, whatever's on your mind, we will talk about it. A nice, safe space where there's no holds barred. You don't have to worry about what anybody thinks. We don't record it. Nothing's going to get back to anybody. And you can share whatever is near and dear to your heart and get answers about things that you cannot get in a lot of places. We are about to celebrate our 5th anniversary. It's a little plug here, shameless plug, as people like to say. But we were talking about personas recently, and there's different schools of thought with people who were attending. But I thought, before all was said and done, I thought I should share what my thought was. There were some people who don't like personas, and that's, you're going to find that. And that's fine. If you don't like personas, you don't want to use personas, more power to you. You don't have to use them. A persona is not a mandatory thing. You can achieve success without using personas in your user experience work. I hope that I'm able to get through to some people, because if you haven't already guessed, I am a pro persona person, but you're going to find out why. And I do challenge you to hear me out on this, because some people will hear me say, well, Darren, you like personas? Shame on you. You shouldn't. Hear what I have to say about it. And then I just challenge you to reach your conclusion after you hear what I present. A lot of times people will say that they disagree with what we're saying. They'll say they disagree with what somebody else is saying, but they haven't really heard the person out. They don't know what the person is actually saying. And I'm going to explain why we need to hear people out, no matter what side of the fence you're on concerning personas. You have to hear people out, and please hear some of the points I'm going to bring up that should factor in why you either choose to use personas or you don't. That's the key. User experience is a field that is completely dependent upon how we engage in critical thinking. And so academic thought, which a lot of people hear that, they don't really know what it is. Academic thought is really another phrase that is referring to critical thinking. In other words, we consider both sides of an argument before we make a decision. You can be pro something, you can be con something, you can be against something. But if you have an academic mindset, which we all should have, everybody in UX should have an academic mindset. So we should have the ability and the willingness to hear somebody out with regard to what they're saying, and then take any biases that you may have, put them on the shelf, hear somebody out, and then make a decision. So that way, if we do say, and I just had a post recently on social media where I was talking about disagreement, and I called it the cult of disagreement, because there's some people, they say that they don't agree, but they're actually disavowing, which is disrespectful, frankly. They say that they disagree, but they can't tell you what they disagree with. And really, there has to be this element of disputation. There has to be an element of, if you don't agree, you should be able to explain why. We need to be able to refute a thing. If you don't think something is valid, you should be able to explain, here are the 4 or 5 reasons why I cannot go along with you in that line of thinking. You cannot do that until you hear someone out. So all those things said, check out what I'm going to say to you today as we talk about what I'm calling, for the purpose of this episode, the truth about personas. The truth about personas. Now, let's go back first and foremost in time, and I'm going to share with you my favorite author on the topic. Shout out to Tamara Atlin. She wrote a couple books about personas. The one that you see here, for those of you on the podcast and you're listening, you're not watching by way of video, I have a screenshot of an image rather, of the cover of her book entitled Essential Persona Lifecycle, Your Guide to Building and Using Personas. And this is written by Tamara Atlin and also her co-author on this one, John Pruitt. Something like this is what actually helped build my mindset. When I looked at what Tamara Atlin and John Pruitt were talking about when it came to this subject, I immediately bought in. And this is something that people miss a lot in UX, no matter what the topic is. People are buying into something without hearing the pros and the cons of the thing. And so now that's just bias. If you believe in a thing or don't believe in a thing, and you don't have any refutation in your arsenal at all, you don't have any reasoning behind your thoughts, then that's just a really massively subjective and overly biased school of thought. And the thing is, when somebody has this overly biased school of thought, and then they go out there and they start sharing that biased school of thought, that's really all they're offering to the community. I'm trying to offer a challenge that people will, again, hear me out on this subject, because this is the type of thing that, again, whether you fall, whatever side of the fence you fall on, you got to hear these. And I'm really going to throw some things out here today that I know people are not thinking about. Matter of fact, I had a conversation with some people recently about this topic, and there were some people in that conversation, and they also most of them were not pro persona. But after I said what I said, practically everybody, they either stopped in their tracks because I presented a bunch of things that they had not considered, or they still did not agree. They still didn't buy in, but they didn't want to express it. But I have talked to people over the years that were staunchly in a particular school or train of thought, did not acknowledge what I was saying at the time. You give them a year, you give them 2 years, you give them 3 years, and now you've got a situation where people are buying in. And this is where we need to be today. You are staunchly, again, I can't get off of this yet. If you're staunchly in a particular camp when it comes to certain thing, do yourself a favor. Number one, understand why you feel that way. Even if you're strongly in a particular camp, you should still be able to say why. If you cannot, then you're guilty of bias. You need to back up, and you need to approach a particular topic from an academic perspective so that you can not only have reasons for why you have the stance that you have, but when you talk to somebody else, you can tell them why. You're doing the community a service when you can explain why and have it validated, and that it's not just something that that's your comfort zone, so you won't move off of it. That's not healthy. That's not emotionally intelligent. But anyway, let me get off of that because I'm going to never get to what I'm trying to share with you today. So for those of you not familiar with Tamara Atlin and John Pruitt's work, and again, Tamara wrote another book about personas, phenomenal work, great schools of thought. And I'm going to share some excerpts from her book here as we build on this thought. So again, Tamara and John are building on their work. So now let's go forward. Let's delve into the book. Some people are saying, you know what, Darren, okay, I'm willing to listen. Can you really tell me what personas are? People sort of buzzword sling that around. People talk about personas and they don't really know what they're talking about. They're using the word because somebody else used the word. So as I like to do, I like to level set. So let's level set on this topic. Now, personas are fictitious, specific, concrete representations of target users. The notion of personas, it did not originate with Tamara Atlin and with her co-author, John. It didn't originate with them. The notion of personas, and may not have even originated with him, but this is where we trace it back to in the world of UX, Alan Cooper, one of my favorite authors and UX personalities of all time. Alan Cooper, and it was popularized in his book. If you don't have his book, please buy it. The Inmates Are Running the Asylum, Why High-Tech Products Drive Us Crazy and How to Restore the Sanity. This book was published in 1999. That's where you first see someone in the design world talking about personas. Now, according to the authors, personas put a face on the user, a memorable, engaging, and actionable image that serves as a design target. So you're designing for this persona, these personas. They convey information about users to your product team in ways that other artifacts, other deliverables that you're producing cannot. I actually worked at a company once where I came on board to help them build their UX practice, and they didn't know nobody knew anything about UX at all in this company. And they were designing, speaking to the point that the authors are making here, they designed for one persona for this particular product that they were working on. And that persona was in management. It wasn't the people that represented 80 to 90% of the user base. They were designing with, they had the right mindset when it came to the persona itself and the structure of the persona itself. But when it came to the practical aspect of the persona, they missed it, because now you're going to design for 5 to 10% of the user base. That's a losing proposition. And that's one of the problems with personas that a lot of people, and I'm sort of get a little bit to the end from the, or jump to the end right now and tell you that one of the reasons why a lot of people hate personas is because they've been overexposed to people that are using them improperly. And in many cases, they have structured them improperly. And we'll talk about that before we're done today. But I thought I'd mention a little bit of the end in the beginning here today, because people hate personas. You have stakeholders that hate personas. You have UXers that hate personas. You have all kinds of clients, people, they hate personas. But folks, they hate personas because people aren't using them the right way. You use the persona to do one of two things, and there's going to be overlap. You're going to communicate with your stakeholders, or you're communicating internally with your team using that persona as a target person or persons to design for. And that example that I just gave, where they had one persona and it was a person that was in management. When I came in, I overhauled that. I shared the story with a group of people I was talking to recently, where I designed 12 to 15, don't remember the exact number, 12 to 15 personas. I use my own template, not the ones that are out here that are popularizing, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But I used my own persona template that helped us to understand, who are we designing for? What types of things are they trying to accomplish today? What are their biggest pain points? And these things, how technologically adept are they? Things like that, things that become actionable as we keep the personas in mind. That helps us to do the work in a way that we would not have done had we not considered the personas. Folks, there is no way, I will firmly stand and say, there's no way that a person can use a persona the right way and not benefit the team. That is impossible if you do it the right way. But if you're not communicating with stakeholders the right way, and by the way, they're not predominantly for personas. In the example I gave, I did use them to communicate, and I had to, because I had to sort of derail the way everybody was already thinking. So they were thinking about this one persona that was a manager, I was traveling around the country meeting with the user base. And so I wanted people to understand, we're not designing for person A that you've been looking at for X number of months. We're designing for these 12, 13, 14, 15 people, and they have a range about them. And there is no one type of persona. I divided those personas into 4 groups. And then across each of the groups, there were layers of technological savvy among them. There were layers of expertise about the domain in which they were doing the work. There were ways to divvy up those personas so that we got a broad understanding of the types of people and their mental models, which really helped drive success. And that project was successful because of that, because we got people off of designing for that one person and we got people to think in a broader way. But at any rate, this is what personas are. Basically, they're a fictitious representation. Put an asterisk on that. A fictitious representation of who you're designing for. Now, what's the asterisk for? They're fictitious in a sense, but they should be based on actual data. If you are designing personas, one of the other problems with personas is that people design, but the data they're guessing, they're spitballing. We should not be spitballing. We are a data-driven discipline. And so we should be designing for people that actually exist. We should be designing based on goals that people actually have. And when you do this, then now it's going to be more concrete. It's going to resonate. And when you take that thing that you designed based on personas and put it in front of actual users, when you're going through your research, they're going to be able to relate. You'll be able to forecast how successful the deployment of your designs are going to be when you use personas the right way. But let's move on to the next step here. Now, benefits of personas. I just talked about a few of them, but let's talk about what the authors had in the book. Personas make assumptions and knowledge. Yeah, they do. Sometimes you can use data, but sometimes you can make assumptions, or you can make educated assumptions or educated guesses, as some people like to say. If you lean too much on assumptions, I will say that, and there is no reality in the data, that can be problematic. And that's why a lot of people hate personas. Make sure that they're based on data. That's my 2 cents, throwing that in there. But personas make assumptions and knowledge about users explicit. So lean on the knowledge about users more so than the assumptions. There's a time you can make an assumption and then you can go test it, and then that makes it more concrete. I just want to point that out. Don't lean on the assumptions. That's lazy. It's irresponsible if that's all you're doing. But again, personas make assumptions and knowledge about users explicit, creating a common language with which to talk about users in a meaningful way. How responsible is that, folks? Wonderful stuff. Personas allow you to focus on and design for a small set of specific users who are not necessarily like you. Remember, you're not your user, helping you to make better decisions. So personas help inform design strategy, folks, which is where we get to drive the value prop that we have as UX professionals. That's where we get to do things that resonate with our clients, our stakeholders, and our users, that to make our teams look good, to make our stakeholders look good. That's what we're trying to do. Personas engender interest and empathy to our users. Wonderful, yes. Engaging your team in a way that other representations of user data cannot. How's that for realistic application of data, folks? In other words, the authors go on to say, personas will help you, your team, and your organization become more user focused. Say it with me. User focused, right? That's what we want to be. That's what we want to do, right? Now, here are some reasons in the book that they say that personas fail. The effort was not accepted or supported by the leadership team. Yeah, at least start by getting support within your UX team, and then it's going to branch out. Please note, you're not going to get support from leadership unless these are done the right way. If you make the mistake that a lot of people are making, because some people today, they just create personas because somebody said create a persona, but they go about it the wrong way, and that's going to make people hate personas. That's why people hate personas so much today, because so many people are doing it the wrong way. So build from the inside out. Don't try to get support outside first. Build within the team and make your personas count. If you make your personas count, your stakeholders won't hate them. Your team won't hate them. Other people won't hate them. We allow people that do work the wrong way to dictate our direction far too often. And a lot of times, because I talked about this during the Sinister series, folks, a lot of us are just cowards. And a lot of us are we take things too personally, a lot of us. And so when somebody says we shouldn't do that and go, what do you mean? And no. Don't, no. We are in a discipline that's very critique oriented. We are in a discipline that requires us to have thick skin. If you make a wrong move, somebody's going to tell you, and be thankful for it. Be thankful if you make a wrong decision. If you put something out there and it needs to be tweaked. That's what we do. That's how we operate. That's how we succeed. That's how we get better. So don't take it the wrong way. Don't take it personally. Don't wear your feelings on your sleeve. As some people say, it's not directed at you. It's about win. It's about winning. And we should all want to win. And a lot of times, I mean, I think a lot of us have been in a situation where we've critiqued somebody and they took it the wrong way. And that will hold you back for years. It can. It can hold you back for years if you don't learn how to take that constructive, truly constructive criticism so you can get better. Oh, you know what? That is a better idea. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. You should have, by the time you've been doing UX for X amount of years, you should have said that a ton of times. It's going to happen. There's not a problem with it. It doesn't mean you're any less of a professional. It doesn't mean you're not good at what you do. It just means that in that moment, at that time, with that thing, there was an alternative that will work better. And if you didn't think about it, you didn't think about it. Which another reason a lot of us work in Agile. And let me pause for this cause. When you work from an Agile perspective, a lot of times we go into brainstorm mode. We, not spitballing, we try to come up with, especially if you're working with heuristics as your base, you're going to come up with a lot of things that will work. And when you come up with a lot of things that will work, it doesn't mean that it's the thing that you're going to deploy. And so you'll end up coming up with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different options. And then people are going to see these options and then they're going to express their thoughts about those options. So, and we are going to be, I mean, how many times do you hear the word iterate? You got all these people doing all their double diamond and triple diamond stuff, of which iteration is a part of. But then when people speak with an iterative voice and tone, a lot of people take it personally and then they start pushing back or withdrawing. No. It's part of the iteration process. When we are moving fast, we are going to come up with things that are not going to work. They're not going to be the best thing. Somebody else might have a better idea. If that's the case, fine. You'll be the professional. You demonstrate your professionalism by accepting that better idea. You don't always have to be the one with the idea. You don't have to be the superstar. Nobody has to be the superstar, and nobody is the superstar. But remember, when we're working fast, when we're working in an agile way, when we're iterating, there's always going to be, take this down, put this up. Let's improve on this. Let's improve on that. So, but don't take that stuff personally. No. Let's be emotionally intelligent. At any rate, the second reason that things fail, the personas were not credible and not associated with the proper level of rigor and data. You have to have the proper levels of rigor and data. Methodological. We've got to be that way. We've got to apply these different thought processes. We have to put things through their paces. But when you don't, I mean, that's part of who we are as UX professionals. But when we don't, and then you roll out a persona or anything else for that matter, it's going to fall short. And then depending upon who it is you're doing the work for, it could become intense. It might not become intense. You're not going to be comfortable. A lot of things come out of that. Make sure that you put the proper rigor and have the proper data supporting that work you're doing when it comes to personas, and you will not have to worry about going through that asterisk. There are times you can do your absolute best and somebody's going to think it's not credible. So understand that's just part of the hardship, part of the challenge of being a UX professional also. We'll move on. Number 3, sometimes personas can be poorly communicated. We'll have an example of that shortly that we will show you. But when personas are poorly communicated, they're not going to work well. People need to know not only what it represents, what you're going to do. Let people know the purpose behind the personas. Let people know who they're for. Because again, why in the world do we create personas and then distribute them among stakeholders? The personas are not for the stakeholders. The personas, when they go to the stakeholders, it's really to communicate, this is who we're designing for. So you can know who we're designing for. We're acknowledging, we want you to acknowledge, we want you to be able to see as a stakeholder that this is a representation of who this product and service is going to be for. This is a representation of the mental models that we're working toward with the way that we've structured our workflows and the way that we've taken care of everything, the way we've done the nomenclatures and the taxonomies a certain way, because it will appeal to this persona. A persona is a manifestation, a high-level manifestation of mental models. We just make it personal. It's the term persona. We make it so they can digest it in a nice, a capsulized kind of way. But it's really more for us than it is for our stakeholders. So be careful, because that's part of the communication process. Some people do it and they think that by giving out a persona that they're making the UX team look good, and then hand the persona off to somebody who has no idea why. They have no context. They don't know why you're using it, why you did it, who really this is for. And so that's a communication problem. So sometimes you may have done everything perfectly with the persona, but then when it comes down to communication, if you don't do the right thing, now we got some challenges. But at any rate, number 4, the product design and development team employing personas did not understand how to use them. We've already pointed this out multiple times. Make sure that you are referring back to that persona when you do the work. How would Sally approach this? Would this be something that Akash would it resonate with him? Would Julie be happy about this experience? Would she be able to delight in it? Would it meet Sam's needs? So that's how we use the persona at describing it at a high level. This is what we need to do with personas. And again, if we use personas the right way, there's not a problem with them. We've just seen so many people use personas the wrong way. And then now we demonize personas. There's nothing wrong with personas. There's nothing wrong with a butter knife. There's nothing wrong with a vehicle. There's nothing wrong with a motorcycle. There's nothing wrong with a sandwich. There's nothing wrong with a webcam. There's nothing wrong with a lot of different things. But if people don't use them the right way, depending upon what it is, over time, people will start to look at that thing in a derogatory way. But it wasn't the thing. It was how people were using and representing. It's about framing. So the way that people frame it is a problem. So if we frame personas the right way, it will work. Not only will people not hate it, but it will benefit you. It has benefited me. I do personas even when I don't have them, when I don't produce them. I still can do a persona in my head when I'm going through what I call progressions and looking at task flows 50 different ways. When I'm trying to examine micro experiences, you look at the micro experiences from the perspective of 5 different personas, and you will come up with 3 different results or 3 different decisions that you can arrive at because of the difference between the personas. It helps us do the work. And earlier, as we begin to wrap up, I talked about what was going on with people who use personas the wrong way. They're created the wrong way. If you go to images.google.com and just type in UX personas, it does not mean that the personas you see are going to be UX personas. Matter of fact, a lot of the personas that people see and use are marketing personas, and they try to use them in UX. This is an example of one that there was a time when I would do this exercise on images.google.com, and I would take students through it and take mentees through it. And you go out there and you type in personas or UX personas, and the page would just be a splattering of a bunch of basically persona templates that look similar to what you see. Now, the folks, no. Let's look at some elements associated with this that let you know where the errors are. The age element associated with a persona may or may not be relevant. If you have a particular target market and you say, okay, we're targeting people from 20 to 30. Okay, now age is relevant, but it's only relevant for the moment. So somebody knows that this is a representation of that target group. But outside of that, it doesn't have any merit at all. So you have to be careful with that. What's their occupation? May or may not be relevant. What is their status? May or may not be relevant. A lot of times, it's not at all. Where do they live? May or may not be relevant. Maybe not. It depends. It depends on what you're designing for, what's going on, what's happening with the mental models. But it might not be relevant. There are times that it's not. I've done a lot of work where the location didn't mean a thing at all. And so if you put that in your persona, if it's not relevant, if it's not actionable, that's how you know whether or not it's relevant to a great extent. If it's not actionable, why is it there? And we'll show you some more examples. You see the experiment hawker. It's a tier. Okay, maybe not. Archetype, the computer nerd. Archetypes are always pretty good, but how you structure that, you want to be careful with that. But you really don't want to say computer nerd. I mean, maybe in some cases you do. If you're doing a lot of professional type stuff, no, you're not going to do that, because to a lot of people, that's an insult. So you don't want to do that. They say he's friendly, he's clever, and he's a go-getter. That may or may not be relevant when it comes to UX. Motivations. There's a lot of different motivations here. Is fear an element? Is growth an element? Social is element? This one's really bad on the contrast. this particular persona. Goals are always important. You just want to make sure they're concrete and that they're reflective of the data that you have. Frustrations or pain points, definitely relevant. Just make sure that it's reflective of the data that you have. The bio, I'm going to be a little nitpicky on this one. With the bio, put it at the top, please. Well, why is the bio at the bottom? It could be helpful, but if it's written in a way where it's just like this, just a blurb of text that is not actionable, doesn't help you really personalize or look at this persona from a humane perspective, then that's a problem. A lot of people, the bios that they write, they're too verbose. They don't really make any sense, and you can't really use it to generate any actions. Then now you've got a problem. So watch out for that. I did skip over one thing though. I'm going to double back. So you got a picture of the person, and then you've got a verbatim. And a lot of times the verbatims are really important because they help you to humanize, to really relate to the person that you're designing for this particular persona. A persona without a verbatim is usually, it lacks impact, just so you're aware. Personality may or may not be, and that's a little redundant. You already have friendly, clever, and go-getter. Why is that there? So I'm being a little nitpicky, but that's who we are. We're paid to be anal. If you're a UX professional, whether you like it or not, you're being paid to be anal, well, as long as the company's doing real UX work. Throw that in there for somebody. Somebody gets upset behind that, but it's true. A lot of companies I say it all the time, a lot of companies that hire UX professionals don't really want them. You'll find that out when you get in there and you try to do UX work. You will find out. I've seen it in my career. I know other people see it a lot. I hear about it all the time. But again, personality may be important, maybe not. That's the kind of place where I would talk about how technologically savvy. There are other criteria beyond personality that you will likely find to be more actionable. And the last time I used my own template to create personas, the level of technological aptitude or the technological aptitude that the users had was critical. It was critical to the change management in the project we were working on. It was critical when it came to learning curves. All of these things, very important, folks. Very important. So we want to make sure that you have the right types of things. Now they have right up under that, they have technology, or right under that. Now, right up under that, they have technology. And with technology, this is where you're looking at, this is probably referring to, IT and internet, software, mobile apps, social networks. So it's like engagement with technology, maybe that label is not very clear. That's the way I take that. Something like that could be helpful depending upon what it is. that you are marketing to that individual, what it is that you are trying to what type of solution you are designing, but you would take that and you modify it based on what your needs are. And then the last one, brands. Every time I see this, I laugh and I cringe because this is from a UX persona perspective, totally unnecessary, has no value whatsoever. You could leave this out completely. When it comes to marketing, yeah. So that's one of the reasons you could tell this is a marketing persona. But the brands mean nothing. There's nothing. Okay, so the person likes Nike. Okay, so the person uses Google Calendar. So the person uses some, I believe that heart is reflective of something with Apple. I'm not 100% sure. Not sure what the other one is either. And so two of them, at least two of them aren't really resonating. But what does it mean? It's possible that it could mean something, but I would challenge whether or not it's actionable. It's about mental models more than about brand affinity. And maybe that's where some people go with this. I think that space could be better used with other things. There are attitudes or elements associated with those brands that are more actionable than the brand itself. And so you could represent that by putting that here. Now, when I'm designing, I could think of that. If I'm designing something, man, this person liked Nike. Okay, so now what does that mean? Well, you're going to go and study Nike to the nth degree, because that's the only way you're going to make that actionable, is to know all these things about every brand that's represented there, which a lot of times we simply don't have time to do. This is a marketing persona. So at any rate, this is what we are dealing with today when it comes to the personas. People are using them the wrong way. They are trying to present them to stakeholders. They're trying to use them as what some of us say from time to time, UX theater, but they're not really properly representative of the work. They're not really helping people. People don't know how to use them to help them to achieve success in their UX work. So folks, we have to keep these types of things in mind when it comes to personas. So now I asked you, hear me out. Do you still feel the same way? Are you more in the camp of doing personas? Are you less likely? Where you land, totally up to you. But I just ask you to hear me out. I am definitely pro persona, but I'm very, very careful how I use them. I'm very, very careful how and when I share them with my stakeholders, with my clients. In some cases, they will never see them as mentioned. I will use a persona in practically everything I design, and other people, including people on the UX team that I'm on, may never see those personas, but I still have them. I still have them because you're always designing for a human being. And so you've got to, even if it's just in your head, you've got to have that persona in mind, and you're going to consider it as you're looking at the micro experiences, as you're looking at the task flows. And folks, personas are a tremendous tool of empowerment for UX professionals. And if we use them and use them the right way, we will experience more success. All right. I rest my case, Your Honor. I'm all for persona. So folks, that's it for today. I hope you got a lot out of this. Thanks for taking the time to listen to or watch the World of UX podcast. Folks, don't forget to go out to kaizentees.com. Check out the t-shirts, check out the caps, check out the mugs, check out the hoodies. Support us with the work that we're doing here on that site. So we're going to go ahead and sign off here, folks. So until next week, this is Darren Hood, the host of the World of UX, signing off. And until then, folks, happy UXing, everybody.